the relevant decision that any institution makes, whether they're a nonprofit, a university, a corporation, or a government, is what's your treasury reserve asset? And if your treasury reserve asset is the peso, and if the peso is losing 20% or 30% of its value a year, then your balance sheet is collapsing.
From a financial, from a human perspective with the volatility, you mentioned you could have gotten it for a nickel and the risk was great. Where's the risk today? What's your sense?
We're 13 years into this entire activity. I think the risk has never been lower. If you look at all the risks, right? The risks in the early years is the engineering protocol proper? Like 1 megabyte block size, 10-minute clock frequency, cryptography is first, will it be hacked or will it crash? 730,000 blocks and it hasn't crashed. Will it be hacked? Hasn't been hacked. But it's a Lindy thing, right? You wait 13 years to see if it'll be hacked. But on the other hand, with $1 billion, it's not as interesting a target as it is with 100 billion. And when it gets to be worth $1 trillion, then it's a bigger target. So the risk has been bleeding off over time as the network monetized. I think the second question is, will it be banned? You couldn't know. It literally could have been banned at any time, many times early on. In fact, in 2013, I tweeted on the subject. I thought it would be banned. I made a very infamous tweet. I thought it was going to be banned. In 2014, the IRS designated it as property and gave it property tax treatment. Okay, so they could have given it a tax treatment where you had to pay tax on the unrealized capital gains every year, and it probably would have crushed it to death, right? So it could have been in any number of places banned by a government, but in fact it was legitimized as property. And then the question is, would it be hacked or would it be copied? Will it be something better than that? And it was copied 15,000 times. And you know the story of all those. And they either diverged to be something totally different and not comparable, or someone trying to copy a non-sovereign bearer instrument store of value found that their networks crashed to be 1% of what Bitcoin is. So now we're sitting at a point where all those risks are out of the way. I would say that year one of institutional adoption is it started August 2020. That's when MicroStrategy bought $250 million worth of Bitcoin, and we put that out on the wire. We were the first publicly traded company to actually buy Bitcoin. I don't think you could have found a $5 million purchase from a public company before we did that. So that was kind of like a gun going off. And then in the next 12 months, Tesla bought Bitcoin, Square bought Bitcoin. And I'd say now we're in year two of institutional adoption. And there are about 24 publicly traded Bitcoin miners by the end of this quarter. So you're looking at 36 publicly traded companies, and you've got 50, at least in the range of $50 billion on the balance of Bitcoin on the balance sheet of publicly traded companies, and hundreds of billions of dollars of market cap of Bitcoin exposed companies. So I would say the asset, decade one was entrepreneurial, experimental. Decade two is a rotation from entrepreneurs to institutions and is becoming institutionalized. So maybe decade one, you go from 0 to $1 trillion, and in decade two, you go from 1 trillion to 100 trillion.